right, strap in, everybody. Get ready for a deep dive into a case that's both baffling and a little bit spooky. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson.
Yeah, this one really makes you think,
It really does. I mean, it makes you wonder, how can somebody just vanish like that? Especially in this day and age with cell phones and GPS and all that.
Exactly right. You'd think in 2008, if something went wrong,
You could just call for help.
yeah, exactly. But this story, it's going to take us down a real rabbit hole.
It already has.
Yeah.
So to get us started, let's get a picture of who Brandon was.
So Brandon was a 19-year-old kid studying wind energy, seemed like a pretty responsible guy, not the type to just disappear out of the blue. The night he vanished, he was driving home, celebrating the end of the semester with some buddies.
Okay. Sounds pretty typical. What happened next?
He had a car accident, a minor one, ended up stuck in a ditch.
Oh, no.
No injuries, thankfully. But here's where things start to get a little strange. He tries calling his friends, but no answer. So he calls his parents.
Yeah, that makes sense. Most people would probably do the same, especially, at 19.
Mm-hmm.
So his parents went to help him, and that was that, right?
Well, not exactly. You see, Brandon told his parents he was close to Lind, Minnesota.
Nope.
But later on, when they checked his phone records, the signal was actually coming from near Taunton. That's like 25 miles away.
25 miles? Wow. Was he just totally lost? I can't imagine being that far off, especially if you think you know where you are.
Right, and that's what's so weird about it. It makes you think maybe something wasn't quite right. Maybe he was disoriented or confused or something. We don't really know.
Okay, so his parents are out looking for him, and they can't find him based on the location he gave them. So
yeah.
What happens next?
Well, they stayed on the phone with him the whole time, guiding him while he walked. He decided to walk, figured he'd get to Lind faster that way.
Okay.
But then during the call, he mentions hearing running water, and he said he could see some lights in the distance.
Okay, now that's a little creepy, right? I mean, was he near a town or a farm or what could those lights have been?
That's what's so strange. People who know the area, they say there's really nothing out there that would match what he was describing. No towns, no main roads, nothing. So was he seeing things? Or was there something really out there?
Okay, so we've got a mixed-up location, mystery lights in the middle of nowhere, and he's walking alone in rural Minnesota at night. What happened during this phone call with his parents?
They talked for almost 47 minutes, and then all of a sudden, Brandon just shouts, "Oh, shit!"
Oh, my God.
And then the line went dead.
That's terrifying. What did the police do?
At first, there wasn't really a huge sense of urgency. The police thought maybe he was just, maybe hanging out with friends or something, that he'd turn up eventually.
Right.
But his parents, they knew him, and they insisted this wasn't like him at all. They knew something was wrong.
And they were right to be worried. What did they find when they searched for him?
They found his car, right where he said it was, in a ditch off this gravel road. It wasn't damaged, just stuck. But there was nothing else. No signs of a struggle or footprints. No clue at all about where he went after that phone call.
Oh, my gosh.
It was like he just vanished into thin air.
That is so scary.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the most puzzling disappearances I've ever come across.
Okay, so we're left with this really creepy situation. A young guy disappears. His last words are a panicked shout. And the only things we have to go on are a car stuck in a ditch and some strange lights. I mean, where do you even begin to unravel something like this?
It's like, when you're working on a jigsaw puzzle, but half the pieces are missing. It's like that. You have to look at every little thing, every single piece of evidence, and try to make it all fit somehow. And in this case, there isn't much to work with, so you have to think about all kinds of possibilities, even the ones that seem kind of crazy.
So what are some of the main theories about what happened to Brandon after that phone call?
Well, one theory that came up early on was that maybe he fell into a cistern or a well. Those old ones.
Yeah.
They're actually more common than you'd think, especially in rural areas. They can be really dangerous because they're hidden and nobody knows they're there. And, Brandon he was partially blind in one eye and he wasn't wearing his glasses that night.
Oh, wow. So it's possible he was just walking along in the dark and fell into one without even seeing it.
Exactly. It's a scary thought, right?
Yeah.
And if it was a deep well, it would be almost impossible to find him. But here's the thing. They did a ton of searching with all kinds of technology, even ground-penetrating radar, and they never found any sign of a well or a cistern in that whole area.
So that theory, while scary, doesn't really pan out. What other explanations did they look into?
Another possibility was hypothermia. It was a cool night.
Right.
And hypothermia, it can really mess with your head, make you disoriented, confused. People wander off course, and sometimes they just can't be found in time.
So you're saying his body could be out there somewhere, hidden or covered up, just waiting to be discovered.
It's possible, yeah. But again, we got to look at the facts. It was chilly, but it wasn't freezing, and Brandon had a jacket on. Plus, hypothermia usually takes a while to set in, and he was talking to his dad for almost an hour, sounding pretty normal. That doesn't really add up.
Yeah, you're right. He didn't sound like he was freezing or about to pass out or anything. So, so if it wasn't a fall and it wasn't hypothermia, what else could it have been?
Well, we have to think about the possibility that maybe something more sinister happened. Could he have run into someone out there who meant him harm?
That's a really disturbing thought, but I guess we have to consider, is there any evidence to support that, though?
That's the hard part. There was no sign of a struggle at his car, and nobody reported seeing anything suspicious that night. And he was on the phone with his dad the whole time, talking about where he was and what he was seeing. If someone was, approaching him or threatening him, you'd think he would have said something, right? There would have been some kind of clue.
Yeah, it seems unlikely he would have stayed so calm and just kept chatting if he was in danger. But then again, we don't know what happened in those last few seconds before the phone went dead.
Exactly. And that's what's so frustrating about this case. There are so many unknowns, so many questions without answers. We have these three main theories: the fall, hypothermia, foul play. And none of them really fit perfectly with what we know. It's like trying to put together a puzzle, but the pieces keep changing shape.
So after all this time, they still haven't figured out what happened to Brandon.
Sadly, no. The case is still open, and there have been some searches over the years, people trying to find new clues, but his disappearance is still a heartbreaking mystery.
I can't even imagine what his parents have gone through all these years, not knowing, always wondering. It must be a nightmare.
It is. It is. And, all their work, all their effort trying to find Brandon, well, it actually led to some important changes in the way missing person cases are handled, especially when it's an adult who's missing. They were really instrumental in pushing for what we call Brandon's Law.
Oh, right, right. You mentioned that before. Can you tell us more about that law and what it means for families who are going through something like this?
Well, before Brandon's Law, there was often a delay in, getting the police involved when an adult went missing. There was this idea that maybe they just wanted to disappear, for personal reasons, and that the police shouldn't get involved because of privacy concerns. But as Brandon's case shows, that way of thinking can be really dangerous.
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious that every minute counts when someone goes missing, no matter how old they are.
You're absolutely right. Time is crucial. The faster you start searching, the better the chances of finding that person safe and sound. So Brandon's Law, it makes it so the police have to take action right away when an adult goes missing under suspicious circumstances. It cuts out that delay and hopefully can save lives.
So in a way, Brandon's legacy lives on through this law, which is, well, it's a real testament to his parents' dedication and their love for him.
It really is, and it shows that even in the face of something so terrible, something good can come out of it. Brandon's Law has definitely made a difference in lots of missing person cases since it was put into place.
That's good to hear. But as we go deeper into this case, I keep coming back to those strange details, those things that just don't seem to have an easy explanation. Let's talk about those lights Brandon mentioned seeing, those lights in the distance. Are there any theories about what they could have been? Or do we just have to accept that they were, I don't know, maybe all in his head?
Yeah, it's like those lights are this weird clue, like they could lead us to something, What if they were real? What could explain lights out in the middle of nowhere like that?
Yeah, most people think he must have been mistaken about them, but let's say he wasn't. I mean, think about what's out there. Yeah, could it have been car headlights?
Yep.
Or a farmhouse in the distance? Or maybe even some kind of natural thing.
Right. I've even heard some people say maybe it was swamp gas or even the northern lights, messing with his vision. Is there anything to those ideas? Swamp gas, it can make these flickering lights, yeah, but usually you find that in marshlands and wetlands, and there's no sign Brandon was anywhere near that kind of area. The northern lights, they're amazing to see for sure, but they don't really look like stationary lights, They're more like waves of color moving across the sky.
So those lights are still a total mystery then. It feels like every time we think we're getting close to an answer, something else pops up and makes things even more confusing.
That's how it goes with these tough cases, especially ones that have been unsolved for so long. But there's another thing I think we should talk about. Remember the bloodhounds? how they traced Brandon's scent to the river.
Yeah, that seemed like a pretty big clue. It matched up with him saying he could hear running water, and it's why they spent so much time searching the river.
Right, right. It seemed to point them in the right direction. But here's the thing, and a lot of people miss this. The dogs lost the scent at the riverbank, not in the water.
Hold on, so you're saying he might not have got into the river at all?
It's possible. Scent tracking with dogs is helpful, but it's not perfect, you know? The scent could have stopped there for a lot of reasons. Maybe the wind changed, or maybe he got into a car, or maybe the dogs just lost the trail for some reason.
Wow. So even that clue, the one that seemed to confirm what happened, maybe it's not so clear-cut after all.
Exactly. And this is why we have to look at everything really carefully, you know? Even if something seems obvious at first, it might actually raise more questions than it answers.
It's like this whole case is a puzzle that keeps changing on us.
In a way, that's what keeps these mysteries so interesting. They make us realize that we don't know everything, that sometimes things just don't have simple answers.
So what do we do with that? How do we make sense of a case like this when, even after all this time, we still don't know what happened? What are we supposed to take away from all of this?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that just because we don't have a definite answer doesn't mean we should stop looking. Maybe someone will remember something they didn't think was important before, or some new technology will come along that can help, you know. There's always a chance we'll find out what happened.
So there's still hope, even for a case like this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to keep talking about these stories, to keep asking questions. It's by working together and staying curious that maybe one day we'll find the missing pieces of the puzzle.
That's a good point. I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners. We may never know for sure what happened to Brandon, but we should never stop trying to find out the truth.
You got it. And if there's one thing we've learned from this deep dive, it's that even in this world where we're all connected and technology is everywhere, there are still mysteries out there that we just can't explain.
And to everyone listening, if this case has you thinking, we encourage you to do some digging of your own. Read about the different theories, share your thoughts, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to figure out something that's been overlooked all these years.
Absolutely. Every idea, every perspective helps in the search for the truth.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It's a case that, well, it definitely makes you think, and we hope it sparked your curiosity and maybe even inspired you to look a little deeper into the mysteries that are all around us. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.